Well, hello. I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing? This will be my last podcast of the week, but not the last one before I hit the beach. So at least get you one next week, possibly two before I go. Just programming note. A lot of you guys have asked about that. And a lot of you have wished me a happy vacation ahead of time. Thank you. We're going to talk about Arthur Smith. We're going to talk about Steeler run game. We're going to talk about some Falcons stuff. Arthur Smith, Najee, Jaylen Warren. Some of this is a little repetitive from months ago when I told you, some of the running back comparison stuff, but you haven't heard it for a while, and I got some new information as well. So, pass rate over expectation. Sounds confusing, but it's pretty easy. Though there's folks out there, analytics folks, that have figured out NFL averages, run pass averages. And what I mean by that is on 3rd and 8, when a team's losing by 10 and there's 2 minutes left in the half, the NFL average pass versus run rate is X percent. When a team's winning by 10 or more in the fourth quarter, the NFL average pass rate versus run is X percent. So just to give you some example. Well, the Falcons were dead last, or first, if you want to look at it. But there's not a right or wrong answer. They're dead last in pass rate over expectation last season at minus 5.5%. So situationally speaking, like I said, they ran the ball 5.5% more than league average, which was the greatest in the run world. Steelers weren't that far off, but you're going to get tons and tons of run. And this Steelers defense is better than the one that Arthur Smith had with Atlanta. But all those quarterbacks are better too. I mean, the run rate is crazy in Atlanta, but boy, the more I watch the Falcons, their quarterbacks were so bad that was part of it. But I think the Steelers will compete with that number again this year, especially if they can stay. That's why I mentioned the defenses. Stay in games, be able to stick with your run game. Don't get one-dimensional. So here's another thing from the last year's Falcons. The Smith's 2023 Falcons offense totaled the third most regular season run plays. They ran the ball 522 times last year, while averaging the second highest run play rate among NFL teams in week 1 through all the Super Bowl. If you look at all the playoffs, everything. Both Atlanta and Pittsburgh were 2 of just 4 NFL teams to give multiple running backs 149 plus regular season rushing attempts. This should hold true again in 2024. Absolutely, think of it with the Steelers. I mean, this is just Steeler related. So Atlanta and the Steelers were only 2 of 4 teams to give multiple running backs 149 carries or more. Like I know Detroit was another one. So not much going to change. I mean, you talk about kind of doing what you're doing and compared to the guys you have now for Arthur Smith, it certainly lines up. BetOnline is your number one source for your number one sports this season, from baseball, golf, NBA, NHL playoffs, all the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, I'm going to cite some more numbers to back this up. But the short of it, the one sentence of it all, was Jaylen Warren was the most efficient dual threat running back in the entire NFL last year. Per touch. That doesn't mean he can handle the volume of Najee. Doesn't mean he's better than Najee. I think he is. But I also don't think Najee could do Warren stuff, and I'm not sure Warren could do Najee stuff in terms of reliability and all those things. But Warren was the most efficient dual threat running back in the entire league last year. That includes Christian McCaffrey. That includes all the stars. keep that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean if you add 25% to his workload that would keep up. It probably wouldn't. So this is a lot of this stuff's fantasy related, of course. But here's a note on the two of them. If Warren would become the starter, Harris still has a lot of upside in terms of pumping out numbers. He's not the greatest, he's not the greatest athlete. We know that. But his mastery of football fundamentals is undeniable. I like that phrase. Protection, not fumbling, reliability, knows what holes to hit, things like that. So how about this? Among 37 NFL running backs with at least 150 rushing attempts, Harris's missed tackles forced per rushing attempt. How many tackles do you miss every time they hand you the ball? Was 15th best in the league. People might not think that. You don't think of him as being elusive. Now, you can force a tackle missed by running over somebody, but he's 15th in terms of making people miss with the ball in his hands. And his 3.0 yards after contact per rushing attempt was 11th. It's pretty good, especially for someone that's not busting off 80-yarders. I mean, usually Barry Sanders, Chris Johnson lead the league in these things because, okay, I made the guy miss. Now I got in the open field. I just had an 80-yard run. So that, your yards after contact go up like crazy. So this is a consistency thing. And among the 29 NFL running backs with at least 15 green zone rushing attempts, Harris's 36% first down or touchdown conversion rate also ranks 11th. So when they gave him the ball, he got first downs and touchdowns at a very high rate, 11th amongst all running backs. His tackle breaking ability also translates to the passing game. He was 9th in missed tackles forced for receptions out of 39 running backs with at least 35 targets. So even when he's catching the ball, he's making people miss. And that is despite catching passes, this might shock you, at the 11th deepest average depth of target. I always talk about that he is a downfield threat. I mean, I'll never forget, watching his Bama tape, but also watching him in his first camp and watching, the receiving things he did with his long arms and ability to get downfield. And if he has, he's trimmed down, so maybe you see even more of that. But of those 38 running backs that had 35 targets or more, only 10 of them are catching the ball deeper downfield than Najee Harris, which might shock you. I mean, I was surprised to hear that. All right. Last thing I have between the two of them, and this doesn't make Najee look as good, but so what? Yards per rushing attempt. Warren, let me see how many guys are on here. Okay, so there's 37 running backs here with at least 150 rushing attempts, and in the passing stuff, there's 38 with at least 35 targets. That's their cutoffs. So amongst 37 or 38 of the most used backs in the league, these are these guys' ranks. Yards per rushing attempt. Warren, first, 5.2. Najee, 22nd, 4.0. Okay. Missed tackles forced per rush attempt. Warren, first. Najee, 15th. Still pretty good. Yards after contact. We just said Najee's 11. Warren, second. So he's been first, second in the three categories we've talked about so far. Okay, how about target rate? Now we're going to get into the receiving stuff. How often are you targeted per route run? Warren, 4th. Najee, 28th. Yards per route run. Warren, 6th. Najee, 27th. Missed tackles per reception, as we mentioned. Warren is 5th. Najee's 9th. And then explosive pass play rate. Warren was 16th. Najee was 36th. So he was down at the bottom, despite being targeted pretty far downfield. So we have talked about some of these things in the past, and the comparison between the two is an interesting one to me, because I don't think it's apples to apples, and Warren's numbers are insane. I mean, I know we have a lot of new listeners, and maybe some of these are shocking you that he's first. I mean, he's the most efficient running back in the league last year. Yeah, that's who he is. Last note on these two. I'm just starting to spitball in my head, but I'm going to throw it out there and maybe be the first one to say this. And it may cause bad blood in the room, but they didn't pick up Najee's option. So both these players are set to hit free agency after the year. Najee's made first-round money, which is a lot different than Warren's undrafted money in his career. What if you threw a year on Warren's contract right now? Or both, for that matter. I've mentioned Najee before, and that's been thrown out there a lot, is you could make it more incentive-laden. The fifth-year option is guaranteed, which is a struggle considering you don't know how this whole season is going to go before you guarantee a year from now, especially for a running back. But you could put it, what if you gave them both another year or two? That's a lot for a running back. But why I bring it up with Warren is by NFL standards, he hasn't made any money yet. So if you can give him a nice signing bonus now, you probably get him for 75 cents on the dollar. I mean, there's such an advantage to signing those guys because the big bonus means more to him than it does Saquon Barkley and guys that are, already wealthy by running back standards, which is lower than other positions. But last note, and why you maybe wouldn't do that, although I really like both these players and what they have going on at the position. I'm really getting ahead of myself and didn't even plan on going down the contract road, let alone this road. But the minimal homework I've done, this upcoming draft class, a year from now or 11 months from now or whatever, is frankly elite at running back. Loaded with studs and depth. So they both walk. I can promise you that factored in on the fifth-year option thing with Najee. So you let both walk and they get big contracts elsewhere and maybe you get a comp peck in return and then you draft one, So, but they got a good thing going is the bottom line. And those stats and my analysis, I think, backs that up quite strong. All right, take care.